Good morning, Jesse. Good morning, Allison. Or good afternoon almost. Welcome. I am Maddie. I'm one of the admissions counselors. So I know we've got some families that are going to be popping in, and so we'll get started like just after noon. And then I know that both of you have some great slides that you've prepared, so we'll give you time to do that. But I'll also be asking you to introduce yourselves once we get started. So I'm going to ask you why you choose to stay at Pacific. So I'll give you a heads up to think about it.
Good to know.
I know.
Awesome. We'll give everybody a couple more minutes to jump in, and then we do have it recording so families can reach it later.
Thanks, Maddie.
Definitely. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maddie. I'm one of the admissions counselors here at Pacific University. And I know that during these Lunch with a Boxer sessions, we usually have the wonderful Gina Lee. And Gina Lee is out today, so I'm stepping in to support our guest today, which is our Student Counseling Center here at Pacific University. We have an amazing team of professionals that provide, such a great amount of support to students. So it's so great to highlight those Student Counseling Center today. So I'm going to have our two wonderful teammates introduce themselves. I have asked them to share, why it is that they stay at Pacific. I know for a lot of students right now, it's why did I decide to come to Pacific? So I want to hear, what it is that is making them stay here. So they're also going to provide us with a little presentation. But again, this is a format in which you can submit your questions via the chat. You can send them publicly, or you can send them directly to myself in a direct message. It's Maddie, she, her, Pacific, you. So feel free to send in those questions that way as well. And I'll be able to kind of funnel some of those questions to these two and kind of pick their brains and get their insights of how to have a successful transition into college. So Allison, I'm going to start with you. Would you mind sharing a bit about yourself, your background, and why you stay at Pacific?
Sure. So my full name is Allison Haidu-Paulin, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and staff therapist at the Counseling Center, and just finishing up my 6th year at Pacific, and lots of reasons I stay. One of the biggest ones is the sense of community at the Counseling Center that we've been able to create in our team as we support students and support each other, and within Student Support Services student life team as well, kind of the non-academic side of everything at Pacific. And then also just the working with students. I so appreciate this time of life that is questioning and curious and open and figuring things out and kind of getting into that space with students. So it's a few of the reasons that I stay.
Thank you, Allison. I know we'll keep a running list throughout your time today. And Jessie, I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, my name is Jessie Larson Wu, and I also use she, her pronouns. And this is almost my 2nd year here at Pacific. So I'm still semi-new. And Allison already named some of the reasons that I stay, so she stole them from me. But I think, working with college students is a unique kind of population and time of life where, we're doing a lot of learning and a lot of discovery. And so it can be just a joy to be kind of alongside folks as they go through that process. And then, I think we get to do lots of fun things like this, where we get to work with different parts of campus and new students, families. So it's a lot of fun work that we get to do.
Thank you. Well, it's great to hear that there are very similar things between both of you, what you enjoy to do. That means it's real, it's happening, that support on campus. So excellent. Well, I'd love to turn it over to you both to provide any sort of those slides I know that you wanted to share, and then I can moderate some questions as we move along. So I'll turn it over to you both.
Great, thank you. I'm going to try to share screen, and hopefully this will work. Okay, can everybody see our staff? Yeah, so we recognize that not everyone can be here with you all today, and so just want to introduce you to the rest of our staff. We have staff psychologists Swan Chen Wing and Jamie Young. You met Jessie. We have our director, Laura Stallings, who is also a staff psychologist. And then we have our clinic coordinator, Angie Surratt. So if you someday come in or call, that's who you most likely be speaking with. And then we also have a new staff that's coming in August. We weren't able to get her picture up yet, but Dr. Daisy Bueno, who's our new equity, diversity, and inclusion specialist and a staff psychologist, will soon be with us. And then we'll also have some additional staff, which are actually trainees from the School of Graduate Psychology, who are supervised by our licensed psychologists. And we'll have 3 of them joining us at the end of August. So you might also end up meeting with them. Yeah, and we're so glad to be with you all today. I'm actually gonna take off the share screen and then we'll come back to that in a little bit, if that's okay. As we talk and tell you a little bit about the Counseling Center.
Okay, so we just want to start out by saying, you know, as students begin at Pacific, we really want to emphasize just the importance of prioritizing mental health throughout the college, you know, process, because mental health affects so many different parts of our lives. When we prioritize it, we just have a higher chance of kind of well-being and general success in school. And so we want to take, you know, this chance to empower you and your families to know about the services that we provide and how to get connected to us throughout your time at Pacific.
So it's important for us at the Counseling Center to create an environment that affirms students in all of their intersecting identities. We also want to acknowledge the impact of systemic oppression on mental health in college students. And we are able to offer space to talk about students that want to address that. And we can be involved in advocacy across campus in terms of systems of access and connection, as well for system-wide, as well as with individual students as needed to connect with other resources on campus and that work against systemic oppression around campus too.
So kind of a brief overview of what our center provides. We provide short-term individual counseling. We have some group opportunities and workshops. We can help with referrals. We do consultations, and then we have some virtual mental health resources. So you can look at our website. We have things like video tutorials, skill guides, online resources, recommendations for apps, things like that.
A question we often get is, can I come in and is it free? And yes, all enrolled Pacific University students who've paid the student support fee, which is one of the many fees that students pay, are eligible for services at the Student Counseling Center. And so our services are free and confidential to all enrolled students. And once you started with orientation and with classes, you're welcome to reach out to us. We recognize that many of you aren't quite here yet, and that's fine. We will be here in August. Right now, we're kind of working remotely, but we will be on campus then and look forward to meeting with you. And Jesse's going to walk us through some of the ways to get connected.
Yeah, so the first step would be just to contact us to schedule what we call an initial consultation. And so that's a time where we sort of clarify what your needs are, can provide you some support in that consultation. We'll tell you more about our services in kind of more in depth. And then we'll kind of collaboratively develop recommendations and plans for next steps for the student.
Some of those next steps might look like empowering students with resources to develop communities of support. It could also be scheduling a one-time kind of return consultation with us. It could also be initiating the short-term individual counseling at the Student Counseling Center. We also offer a number of group opportunities and workshops. So it could be getting connected to that. And it also might look like a referral off campus for specialized care or long-term care. And most often students receive a combination of each of those services.
So some of our offerings, we offer space for minoritized students to connect and share resources through a couple of weekly drop-in spaces. So we have our BIPOC Let's Talk, which is for BIPOC identified individuals, and then Queer Let's Talk for queer identified students. And you can always check our website or Instagram for additional events throughout the year, since we generally come up with new workshops and other events to kind of create more community and address some of those common mental health concerns that students might have.
So for incoming students, prospective students and families, we want to normalize that this transition to college can be an adjustment, often is an adjustment, and it can take time to develop community, a sense of belonging, to develop new friendships. We encourage students to stay connected with family and friends from home, which we're all pretty practiced at doing electronically these days. And then also to try out new activities to connect with the meaningful community here at Pacific once you arrive. I'm going to pull up the other slides, Jesse, as you talk about some of the logistics.
Yeah, thanks, Maddie, for sharing that. And we'll share all of our contact info, including our Instagram and phone number and all that.
That's our building.
So if you're on the Forest Grove campus, this is our building. It's in the middle of, or next to admissions, and then we share a building with student health. So we have separate doors, but we're right next to each other. And so for the fall, we are sort of anticipating that we will be doing a hybrid model of in-person and virtual sessions via this platform, So Protected Data Zoom. But as you know, with COVID, things are constantly changing. So that is what we anticipate, but you can always check our website for those updates.
And we mentioned these earlier, but just want to highlight some of the different kind of programs that we offer, from the Let's Talk to mindfulness. We have a video about how to create your own routine, which can be really useful to watch at the beginning of the semester. And then Queer Let's Talk, as well as progressive muscle relaxation. And we have a lot of students that come in with concerns around anxiety and stress, and that can be a really helpful way to walk through engaging in relaxation. And then sometimes we also recognize students are in need of immediate support. And so we have a walk-in at noon on Monday through Friday. So you don't have to call, make an appointment. You can just come in to our center and speak with one of our counselors. And then we also have a 24/7 support and crisis line at the 503-352-2999. And so that's available at all times, since our office is mainly Monday through Friday. And we have the information on here of the location and our email and our phone number, and then ways that you can follow us on Instagram and check out our YouTube videos. And there's all of the information is also on our website. So I want to make sure you all can see that too.
And we just also want to mention that for families, this 24/7 line can be used by you all as well. There may be times in the course of college that you may be concerned about your students' mental health at some point and want to consult with someone. And that line is a great resource for that. Families that are concerned about students can also submit a care report on the Pacific website, or contact Residence Life or the Dean of Students office. So just want you all to know some of those resources coming in.
That's what we had prepared to share with you, and we're also happy to answer questions, whatever might be arising.
Thanks to the both of you. It's so great to see kind of that first steps. What might it look like for an incoming student, and then seeing what that kind of maybe 4-year plan will look like in getting support. So we appreciate you highlighting the many different ways that students can get involved in taking care of that mental health. I do have one question of what would be the recommendation or advice or a tip that you would provide these incoming students as they prepare to come to college in the fall? Is there anything that any advice that you would give leading up to that point?
You want to go, Jesse?
Sure, you can step in too. I mean, I think the main thing is just we want to normalize that it's an adjustment, and adjustments are often or can be difficult. There are a lot of sort of different reactions we can have with a big adjustment. And so I think part of that is knowing that that might come, and just being able to kind of sit with it and use some of the skills and resources you might sort of innately already have, whether it be calling and talking to friends or family, or doing some of those activities that feel good. Yeah, and then I think like Allison mentioned earlier too, just being able to find new community, which takes time, but being able to do some of that reaching out and engaging in some of those activities to get connected. Anything you want to add, Allison?
That video that we have on creating a routine is often something that I'm talking about with students, especially newer students, in terms of, oh, right, like getting regular amounts of sleep and making sure to eat regularly and move our bodies in fun ways that feel good. Just kind of some of those basics, keeping those in place in the midst of so much else that's changing as you start at Pacific. Yeah.
Thank you. I think those are little nuggets of success as students transition. I do have one question coming in. Do sessions take place in person or virtually? Could you kind of talk a little bit about what they can expect again this coming year?
Our plan is to be in person, and we are still going to be offering some teletherapy. So like we've been doing during the pandemic, it's been all teletherapy because that's been the safest thing to offer. And so we're going to keep some element of that, but I think probably primarily it will be in person. And so that building that we had the picture of earlier on College Way right next to admissions is where students would come for sessions. Yeah.
Excellent. And I know you have an amazing team. Does a student get to work with the same therapist each time that they come in? Is it different?
I think that depends in some ways. So our trainees are generally with us for 1 year. And so, you know, if a student was seeing a trainee and then they come back the next year or year after, then they would likely see someone different. We always ask students for their preferences for who they'd like to see. If they do have any preferences, if they have seen someone before and would like to see them again, they can always let us know that, and we will do our best to get them connected to who they feel might be a good fit.
Thank you. And can you remind us how many sessions a student gets per year, per semester?
So we offer short-term therapy because we are providing services to the whole student body, which includes our undergraduates and graduate students. And so to allow access for all students, our average number of sessions is about 6. The most common is 1, and then they can have up to 10 per year. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. And another question. Should I meet you as soon as I arrive on campus, or should I come to campus, see how that transition goes, and then if I'm having a hard time, try scheduling a session? Can you speak maybe to that perspective?
That's a good question. Yeah. I mean, I would trust the students' kind of assessment of what's going on for them. I would say since we are expecting it might be difficult, it could certainly make sense to wait a little bit and just see how it goes and how they're feeling. But, you know, if students are really having a difficult time and feel like they could really use some support, then certainly, you know, reach out to us right away.
Yeah, I echo that. And just a reminder that we do have that walk-in time Monday through Friday at noon. So if, you know, they don't want to call and make an appointment for next week, they can just come in that same day. And so there's that flexibility there.
Excellent. Kind of meeting the students where they're at in any way. Excellent. I do have another question coming in. Is there a way to get connected to a long-term counselor in the area? Can students utilize you all as a resource to find what's available with many students coming from out of state or even coming from other metro areas?
Yeah, we help with referrals all the time. So yeah, students are welcome to sort of do a consultation with us and let us know kind of what their needs are and insurance and all of that. And then we can help provide some referral options for them.
Yes, it's helpful if they do schedule that kind of initial consultation with us, and then we can have kind of a more in-depth conversation about what they're looking for, and we can kind of tailor the referrals to what they're needing.
Great. Another question I've got coming in is about those group therapy options and kind of the structure of that. You mentioned undergraduate students and graduate students. Can you speak to what some of those group therapy options might be? Are they drop-in or are they more of kind of that consultation and get connected with you, the group therapy?
Let me talk, Jessie.
Oh, well, so we talked about the two Let's Talk programs, so the BIPOC Let's Talk and Queer Let's Talk. Those are our drop-in model. So students don't need to be a client at the Student Counseling Center. They don't need to go through the initial consultation or anything like that, unless they would also like to see an individual counselor. But those drop-ins are structured in kind of a I guess like an as you need way. So if students come into that drop-in, they can ask to see someone privately for that session, or they can stay in the more group model. And that is more kind of resources and consultation, community building kind of space. And then our groups kind of change each year. So usually we offer some sort of mindfulness group. And that one, we're not exactly sure how it will be this year, but in the past we have had students register for that. And so it is a little more structured, and you go through 3 different sessions. Currently on our YouTube, we have some of those pre-recorded groups essentially. So we have a Wise Mind group, which is around emotional regulation. And then we have our Mindful Coping group, which is around mindfulness. And so both of those are pre-recorded, 3 sessions each that students can watch in their own time. Yeah, and I think with other groups, like we will kind of wait and see when fall comes and spring comes as far as what we'll offer this year.
Yeah, do you look for feedback from students of what's kind of in need from them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do. We every year we have a survey that goes out to the students that have accessed us. And so we get a sense of like what's helpful and what's not helpful, and we adjust and make changes. And then also knowing that we're having our new staff come on in August, and that part of their job is a lot of that outreach piece. So that's why some of this is still in flux, plus coming back in person from being in remote land. We also have had in the past a process group, which would run for a whole semester and be more therapy and clinically focused, as opposed to more the drop-in kind of psychoeducational groups. And so stay tuned to our website and to our Instagram to see what's going to be happening. And we'll also be promoting whatever is going on during the orientation in August.
Yeah, definitely check your Pacific email. I'm sure there will be announcements there, but then certainly Instagram, so that you can get kind of those announcements throughout your social media feed throughout the semester. I love that you guys are on Instagram.
Yes, it's new for us in the last year.
Excellent.
I know.
Okay, one other question is the therapy confidential? Who all will be told I've come in for a session, or even what I've talked about?
A great question. And yes, your therapy is confidential. So all that is held at the counseling center. It's not shared with your academic program or anybody else in the community. There are, of course, rare exceptions to that around safety. But we go over that in depth with everybody who comes in to the counseling center for clinical services. And so invite those questions at that initial consultation. It's a good time to really dig into what that looks like and means. But yes, we're all licensed. All of the senior staff, main staff are licensed professionals. And so we're following all the regulations for Oregon and for our own licensing boards.
Thank you. Well, I know I'm wrapped up on the questions that were sent in. If either one of you wanted to share any frequently asked questions that have been sparked by the conversation today, I can definitely give you time to add anything else.
Anything you can think of, Allison?
No, just that we are available if people have other questions that come up as they're contemplating starting, or with what's at the beginning of the semester. We are here, and I know during orientation there will be at various events. Often there's a kind of fair, so we'll have a table. Our office will also be open if you want to stop by and ask a question, or call and ask a question. Angie is happy to answer those too. So just don't want this to be the end of being able to get those questions answered. Yeah, and also recognize too that with coming back to campus, it's been a little while for most people. And so that's going to be an additional kind of layer of adjustment this fall. And so encourage people to have patience with themselves, and knowing that it's going to take a little while, to maybe a little extra time to make that adjustment and transition. Yeah, encourage that self-compassion in that process.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And one other question actually came in, and this is a really great question to take students probably into summer. Are there any good self-help tools, like any apps that you want to plug right now that students can maybe look into and possibly create a habit with?
I mean, my favorite apps are, I think, mindfulness based. So there's a free app called Insight Timer that has lots of meditations and sort of guided breathing or guided like muscle relaxation, those types of things. It also has things like sleep stories or sleep meditations that can help with sleep as well. So I think those are great things to practice on your own too.
Yeah, and if you want additional ideas, there's more too on our website. On the menu on the left, there's an apps section. It goes through a few around mindfulness and coping skills that can be helpful tools to get started with and try out. Everybody's a little bit different. Sometimes people like their meditations with music in the background or pictures, or so it can really vary, but kind of experimenting and finding what works for you. Yeah.
We so appreciate your advice and supporting students as they get into this transition. And it's so great to hear how open and welcoming to drop-ins or scheduling. It sounds like students really can find maybe what will fit for them, even if it's different the first year or the second year, or even the first week and the second week. So really adjusting and meeting students where they're at. We thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to actually give an announcement of what's going to be happening next week. Gina Lee, our fantastic events coordinator, will be back to host our new student orientation update. So just a reminder to families that orientation starts in late August, August 26th through the 29th. We're going to be getting updated information from Denise Giesbergs about what that will look like, but know that that conversation will still continue to happen as we go into the fall, and encouraging students to check that Pacific email. And we know that other questions will come up. Last week we had our housing department. So feel free to jump onto that YouTube playlist, watch any of these recordings that we've done, jump back onto this Student Counseling Center recording. Even when you're a current student here and you're like, wait, how do I sign up for a therapy session? This is a resource and a tool for you as you go into the fall as well. So thank you. We hope to see you next week during your lunch hour. And I know many students are graduating right now and having those celebrations. So congratulations to any of those seniors out there celebrating. But we thank you so much, Allison and Jesse, for being with us today. I hope you all have a good afternoon, and please feel as though you can stick around if you have any questions